some things that you can do, both simple things and really complex things, to help bring your characters to life. So I've given all of these 8 people a specific role that a character will play in their book. And they're putting somebody together, and then we're going to guess who has which one. Because I bet money that you're going to be able to correctly identify who these characters are based solely on what they look like. And your characters in your book will have some of that as well. That's the first thing you want to do when you look at your character, is look at them and say, what do they look like on the outside? Does it matter if they have brown hair or blonde hair? Does it matter if they have brown eyes or green eyes? Does it matter how tall they are? Does it matter what kind of clothes they wear? And in some cases, yes, it does. If you will know something about a character if he wears a Superman t-shirt as opposed to the latest Christian Dior with pearls. 2 different kinds of people wear those kinds of clothes. And you can communicate to your reader certain things that you want them to know about your character strictly by what they're wearing and what they look like on the outside. Okay, you have 10 seconds. Can you count us down? 1. Okay, Mr. Potato Head's down. Stand back in front of the table. Grab them, hold them up. That's all right. If they don't have feet, they're not going to run away. Okay, hold them up nice and high. You can come stand in front of me if you need to. We can spread out. All right, so I want to know who here, I don't want the Mr. Potato people to say, who's the hero? Who do you think is the hero? Yes, in the red. Is he right? Okay, who's the hero? Yes. Is it you?
No.
Okay. In the back, in the gray, who's the hero?
Well, the one on the far left.
The far left, are you the hero? Who's the hero?
Me.
You're the hero. Why did you pick what you picked to make him the hero?
I just thought of classic superheroes and chose what the closest like them.
That looked like the plastic superhero with the mohawk? Cool. Why did you think she was the hero? The safari hat made you think he was brave and adventurous? Good. Okay, who is the villain? Who wants to take a guess at the villain?
The one with the bunny ears.
The one with the bunny ears. Is the villain the bunny ears? That sounds like a no. Who's falling apart? Okay, are you the villain?
No.
Okay, who wants to guess on the villain? The second to the last.
No.
Still not the villain. What about you?
Yeah.
You're the villain. So why did you pick what you picked to make him the villain?
Most villains have mustaches, so I did mustaches. Most villains, superhero movies, mask themselves. And
So-
then the eyes because they want something.
Because he's in disguise, and she picked the mustache because often villains have mustaches. And that may be a cliche, but if you know that and you use that smartly, you can clue your reader in that yes, perhaps your villain does have a mustache, and they will suspect him, perhaps even without knowing why. Okay, very quickly, who has the damsel in distress? Which one? The blue shoes and the red hat? Are you the damsel in distress?
Yeah.
Good call. What made you pick this one?
Well,
Because she's got
it
the
was a girl hat, and the hand made her look like she was swimming.
that she was swooning. So your body language, the way where you put your characters and how they react in certain situations is also going to communicate who they are. Who's the comic relief? Raise your bunny ears. I'm assuming the bunny ears are the comic relief, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we knew that. Who's the nerd? Raise up the nerd, Bob, the nerd. Excellent. Who's the jock? Are you thinking, yes, I picked correctly on these? What about the wicked stepmother?
Couldn't do it.
Oh, we ran out of time. That can be tricky to figure out exactly how to communicate that. And what about the bully? So when you are thinking about your characters, I want you to think about them like Mr. Potato Head characters, and think about what do you put on them to make the reader realize that they are who they are supposed to be in the book. Thank you. You can just leave your potato heads on the table. And thank you to my lovely nieces who let me borrow all of their potato head pieces. But I want to go a little deeper into character building, because it isn't just what's on the outside. That's just one tool that you can use to help build your character into somebody recognizable and memorable. what we're going to do for the rest of the class is to think about each individual Mr. Potato Head body part and think about what that means in character building. So the first thing I want you to think about are the Mr. Potato Head eyes, right? Every potato head's got them. We have some that have eyelashes and some that are googly and some that have eyelids. And what I want you to think about is now inside your character, what is it that your character sees? What are their surroundings? How is your character perceiving the world around them? Because it's going to be different for every character based on who they are and where they're from. So, is your character really paranoid? Does he see the world as something that is out to get him? Does he see the world through rose-colored glasses, like everything is totally awesome? Who has seen the Lego movie? Please tell me you've all seen the Lego movie. Everything is awesome, right? Emmett looks at the world a certain way that is totally different than how Katniss looks at the world in the Hunger Games. So, is the world that your character in something that they need to conquer? Is it something that they need to survive? And how they see the world is going to help you know how defensive they're going to be, how aggressive they're going to be, how compassionate they might be, because that's how they see the world. So I want you to think about the setting where you have placed your character. And it's going to be different for everybody. Who's writing a science fiction novel? Who's writing fantasy? Who's writing historical fiction? Oh, good, a couple people. Who's writing romance? Who's writing a Western? Nobody's writing a Western. That's going to change the setting, and so think about where you've put them. Is your character in a science fiction world? Are they somewhere urban? Are they somewhere where they're mostly isolated? Are they on an island somewhere? Do they live on the penthouse in a giant building where there's no green space? That's also going to affect what they see around them. Because when you move your character now from the environment where they began into a new environment that is different, that is where you're going to know what kinds of things to describe, what kinds of details that you need to bring out. If your character has grown up on an Idaho farm their whole life, and they go to New York for the first time, think about what they're going to see and what's going to stand out as what is different and what is the same. And recognizing where those differences and those similarities are will help you know what your character obsesses about, or where they feel comfortable and where they feel safe. When you contrast the past with the present, it's going to create some really interesting insights for future change. So think about, what did they see around them in the world when they were children, and what do they see now in the world of the story? And how do those relate to where they're going to be at the end, to see the vision of the future of who they're going to be. Also think about how much introspection your character has. Often, who's writing first person? A first person story. Lots of people write first person because it's a great way to get inside the head and the heart of your character. And if you're writing first person, you really want to make sure that your character feels like a real person. We talk to ourselves all the time. As people, as real, regular people, we talk to ourselves all the time. Your character should as well have that internal monologue, analyzing and assessing the world around them and figuring out, what they have to do. So, are they confident in who they are? Are they proud of who they are? Do they know who they are? And because knowing how and where they fit into their environment is going to let you come up with personalized conflicts. If you have a character who sees the world as something to conquer, and they are brave, and they are strong, and they are knowledgeable about how to get things done, then you are going to put them in a position where they are powerless, where they have no ability to change the world around them, and then see what they do, because that's where conflict and change is going to come. If you have a character, on the other hand, who grew up sheltered and quiet and shy and is very introspective, then you put them in a position where they have to stand up and be the leader, where they have to stand up and actively change something. That's going to take them out of their comfort zone and make them do something interesting. So, Mr. Potato Head also has these cute little pink ears. Some of them have earrings, and some of them don't, and some of them are wild and crazy. But your character has ears too, right? So what does your character hear? What kind of messages are they getting from the world around them? Do they mostly hear compliments? You are so cool. Oh, I wish I could be like you. You're such a great dresser. You're so smart. You're so funny. If you hear that all the time, what does that do to you? How does that change the kind of person you become? As opposed to if you only hear complaints. Does your character grow up in a house where their parents say, you are a loser and you will never amount to anything, and I wish you had never been born? Your character, if they are fed a steady diet of that is what they hear, and is that what they believe, then that is how they are going to act. So what do you say to yourself when you're alone? Because your character will have moments in the story where they are alone and they have to figure out what they're going to do. So what does your character say about himself and to himself when he is alone? Does he continually feed himself with those compliments or those complaints that he hears around him? Or does he fight against them? This is where you can start getting into a lot of internal development when you say, my dad thinks I'm a loser, but I'm going to prove him wrong. That's a very different kind of character who's going to change in your book than somebody who says, my dad says I'm a loser and he's right. So think about that kind of emotional impact as well. We often, people do this, I do this all the time, we believe the bad about ourselves instead of the good. And I think that's okay for your character at the beginning, because if your character believes the bad things about themselves at the beginning, even if they're hearing it from themselves, and then at the end of the book they have changed and realized that what they believed before was a lie, then you have demonstrated growth in your character. So here's an example. This actually happened to me at work. I work at Deseret Book in the publishing department, and I'm in charge of tracking meeting where we keep track of all of the schedules. And at the end of our meeting, one of the other editors wanted to share, said, oh, can I just share something? You know, somebody came in and she was really deferential about it. And she told the story about how an author that she had worked with had paid her a compliment, which was a really awesome compliment. And it was totally true, and we all knew it. And then she said this, of course it wasn't true. And besides, adulation is poison. Do you know what adulation is? It's praise, it's honor, it's the overflowing feeling of you've done a good job. So here is a person that I work with who was paid a compliment on her performance, which was true and we all knew it. And then she downplayed it by saying it was a lie and that compliments are poison, which suddenly triggered in my head the reason why she never says anything nice to anybody at work. Because she believes that saying nice things to people will hurt you because they are poison. And then suddenly I had this great insight into who she was as a person and the reason for her behavior. So if your character has something that they believe, that they have heard, or that they have said, you can play with that and manipulate your audience into feeling a certain way about your character. Here's another example. What do they say when somebody says, I love you? Do they say, I love you too? Or do they say, why? Or do they say nothing at all? Those are wildly different reactions to a statement. And what your character has heard their whole life will help dictate how they respond to questions like that. And it also goes into what they say. So I want you to think about Mr. Potato Head's mouth. He's got smiley faces, and he has big teeth, and he's got his tongue sticking out, and he's all different kinds of expressions and all different kinds of mouths that we can put together on Mr. Potato Head. And your character, this is extremely important. We live and die by what your character says. That's the driving force behind dialogue. Who feels they struggle with dialogue? It's hard. It's hard to make it sound like a real person, and a person that is different from you, and a different person from the other characters. But thinking about what your character sees and thinking about what your character hears will help you know the kinds of things that they will say. So that will help you know if they've got pet phrases that they use, if there's slang, if there's a certain phrase at their house that their parents have always used, if they hang around their grandparents and they've picked up their grandparents' slang from the 20s or the 40s, you might be able to sprinkle that in through their dialogue and help us see how they are a different person just by the way they talk. Is he a liar? At what point in your book does your character lie? There probably will be times where your character is going to have to lie to somebody or withhold the truth or massage the events just a little bit to get what they need. Are they good liars? Maybe. Do you prefer silence? Sometimes the answer to the question of I love you is just vast silence. And then what happens? If you're writing a romance and your main character says, for the first time I love you, and there's nothing that comes after that, that can be terrifying in a great scene to get your characters into a conflict situation. So voice is one of the best ways to showcase your character, and we could do a whole class just on voice because this is really important. And as an editor and as a writer, the comment I hear most about writing and the things that make it stand out is that it has a really strong voice. And what I mean by that is that your character sounds like a real person and has personality and doesn't just sound like I could swap out anybody else's name in this book and they could say the same thing and it would sound exactly the same way. And you should try it if you feel like maybe you're struggling with this. Pick a page or a couple of pages in your book and see if you can just switch the dialogue tags. And if you can switch the dialogue tags and have the scene play out the same way, then maybe you might need to work on that scene to differentiate your characters a little bit more so that only one person is going to say things a certain way. That way it helps eliminate your dependence even on dialogue tags because you know from just the sound of the dialogue who's talking. Words can be used to hurt as well as heal. And for some characters, words are weapons. I finished reading a book, Casey West, I think she's here. The Distance Between Us, has anybody read it? One person in the back. It's really good, I really liked it. The main character in there is super snarky, like wildly sarcastic in everything that she says. And after a while, there were times where I kind of wish she'd lessened up on that. But the point was, I knew exactly through the course of that book when she was talking because of what she said and how she said it. And she often did use words as weapons, as a protection, as a way to keep other people away. So think about what it is that your character is saying and how often they are saying it. Okay, Mr. Potato Head also has big, white, googly, flexible arms, right? So think about your character's goals and dreams. This is also going to help with your motivation, which we'll talk about in just a minute. What is your character reaching for? This is a question you want to ask because this is going to help drive the whole point of your book. Frodo needs to get the ring to Mount Doom, or else all of Middle-earth will fall into shadow. What is Frodo reaching for? He has got to get his little self to Mount Doom and save the world. That is his overarching goal, and that is the goal that drives that whole story. And if you know exactly what it is that your character is reaching for, you know the end result of your book. Who feels like they have trouble with the ending of their book, how to end their book? I would encourage you, for those of you who raise your hand, to write a list, a succinct one-sentence statement. My character wants to get, have, be, find, anything like that, any verb that you want, and then fill in that blank. That will help give you a signpost to point and drive towards. So at the end of your book, they get, find, be, become, see, hear, whatever it is that you want them to do. Then write the scene where they accomplish that. And then you can fill in all of the things in between. That's their goal. It's their heart's desire. It's the passion that drives them to change and to be and to put everything else aside in order to accomplish their goal. We love characters who have a clear goal. And they can have more than one. They can have lots of little goals along the way. But if he really wants to go to prom with this girl, that's a clear goal at the end. And we will cheer and we will love it when we see it happen at the end. That's the payoff. Because we all have dreams, right? We all have something that drives us. We all have something that we want. So make a list of your characters, things that would be nice to have, and things that they absolutely have to have, that they cannot live without. It might be nice to have a new car or a super cool phone or a new wardrobe, but maybe they have to have a father who doesn't beat them anymore. Maybe they have to have a date to homecoming. Maybe they have to have a chance to throw that ring in Mount Doom and save the world. If you figure out what their have to haves, then you know what to withhold. as an author. You know what to put in front of your character to say, I know you want this more than anything, but this is the one thing you cannot have. What are you going to do about it? And you push your character to fight back to get what they want. You as the author have complete supreme control. That is one of the great fun things about being a writer, is you put your character in a horrible situation and then you say, get out of it. What do you do? What do you do to get out of the tree? What do you do to get out of the pit? And while you're trying to get out, character, I'm going to throw more horrible things at you to see what you do. We love that when things get worse and worse and worse before they get better. And so when it comes to dreams, be as specific as you possibly can. I don't want the dream to be, I want to fall in love. I want the dream to be, I want to fall in love with that guy, and I want him to fall in love with me. That's a much more specific goal, and your character will do different kinds of things to accomplish that goal than to just say, I want to fall in love. So, has anybody seen the show Chuck? Does anybody know the band Cake? This is one of my favorite songs, and I love this song, and it didn't play because I don't have any music. But this is part of the lyrics for this song called Short Skirt, Long Jacket, and I love it because this is a description of a character that is extremely specific. I want a girl with a mind like a diamond. I want a girl who knows what's best. I want a girl with shoes that cut and eyes that burn like cigarettes. I want a girl who gets up early. I want a girl who stays up late. I want a girl with uninterrupted prosperity, who uses a machete to cut through red tape, with fingernails that shine like justice, and a voice that is dark like tinted glass. Do you know who this person is? If she walked in this room, would you say, that's the girl for him? I want your characters to be specific, not only on who they are, but who they want. So be as specific as you possibly can, because that's going to help you know who your characters are. And I recommend this song, it's super catchy. Lengthen your stride. Mr. Potato Head doesn't have really long, flexible legs, right? He mostly has the bottom of a potato and then feet, but he does have tiny little legs in between a little post. But your character will have legs, right? So, where is your character going? We don't want characters who are stationary. We don't want characters that are stuck in one place for the whole book. We want, both physically and metaphorically, we want characters that are active and are moving and are heading towards something. This ties into what is your character's goal? And what action is she willing to take to get what she wants? If you know what your character's goal is, and you know how the specificities of their dream, the exact details of their dream, then you can ask yourself, what are the actions that she will have to do in order to achieve that? And if you can answer that, that is your plot. That is your pacing. Because you will make your character do those specific actions, and that will keep your story moving. And that will get her where she wants to be, which is at the end of the goal, the achievement of the dream. So you totally can make me do it. You are the boss of me. You are the boss of your characters, and you can make them do whatever you need them to do, as long as they have sufficient motivation. My mom, who is also a writer, taught me this early, and it is so true. With the proper motivation, you can make your character do anything, and we will believe it. Now, obviously, it's easier for us to believe in a character who does things that is within their character structure and not against their character beliefs. It's easy for us to believe that Superman is going to save a small child. He has good motivation for that. It's harder for us to believe that Superman would kill a small child. He would have to have a different kind of motivation in order to do that. But if you can find it, we will believe it. So, when you're thinking about your character, when you're thinking about the motivation to get them to do what you need them to do, to accomplish that goal that they want so desperately, ask yourself these 4 questions. What does he want? Which hopefully you already know because you've thought long and hard about their ultimate goal. How is he going to get it? Which hopefully you have thought about as the list of actions that they are going to take to get it. What is going to stand in his way? These are the obstacles that you throw at your character to make them, to force them into into a new place, into growth. And the obstacles can come from within themselves. It can also be external. It can also be other obstacles that you place in their path. And the more, the better. So question number 3 doesn't just have one answer. It has like 1,000 answers, and then you can pick which one you want, or 2 or 10. And then the last question is, how is he going to overcome that obstacle? This is another place where if you can be really, really specific on how a character is going to overcome that specific obstacle, that will help strengthen your plot. So, for example, Katniss wants to save and protect her family, right? That's why she volunteers to be tribute. This is a huge motivation for her. This is the goal. She wants to protect her family. So, what do? We place her in a situation where in order to accomplish what she wants, more than anything in the world, saving her family, she has to kill somebody who had been nice to her. That is even harder, because it's one thing to say, in order to protect your family, you have to kill this horrible person who has, run over your cat. You might say, that's an easy decision. But now she's faced with the question of, you're going to have to kill this person who saved your life. He's a good guy. He doesn't deserve to die. So who is more important in your life? Your family or the person that saved you? So what is she going to do? But the answer, the quest to answer that question, what do you do when faced with an impossible choice, it drives that book. At some point you think, well, of course she's got to save her family. And then you put her in situations where you think, well, of course she has to save this other guy. And that push and pull is what keeps you reading that book to find out, what does she do? How does she get out of that impossible situation? So for your characters, if you can put them in an unanswerable question, what do you pick, character? Do you pick your heart's desire, or do you pick the very thing that will destroy you? That is really good conflict. It is really good motivation. That is a really good question that will keep your readers turning the pages. Mr. Potato Head also has 2 fancy, fun little feet that are connected. But they come in all different shapes and sizes. We've got purple bunny slippers up here, we have tennis shoes, we have high heels and regular running shoes, and your character will have their own 2 feet that they need to stand on through this book. So I want you to think about, where is your character standing? What do they believe? What are you going to fight for? And what are you going to die for? Where are the edges of what your character is willing to do? If you know the world that your character inhabits, and you know how far they're willing to go to get what they want, then you know how to push them over the edge. Just like we did with Katniss. Characters with really well-defined values, even if you don't agree with them. This is a really important point, I think, for writers, especially young writers. You can have characters that believe differently than you do. You may have a character who thinks it's totally okay to lie to their parents and sneak out and get high and drive and drink underage. You might have a character that does that. That's who the character is. So don't feel like you're constrained by what you would do. It's what your character would do. Because they're interesting and memorable and compelling. We want to read about them. We want to know what they're going to do. We want to know how they're going to change. And characters with conviction, whatever it is that they believe in, that they're willing to fight for and die for, that conviction belongs in a character who's going to carry the plot and who can change things. And ultimately, that's what you want, is you want a character who's going to change the world around them. Whether it is literal, Frodo saving Middle-earth by throwing the ring in Mount Doom, or changing the world around them in an emotional way, in a family way. Maybe it's the world around them in school. It's the world around them in a relationship. However you define that, you want a character who believes in what they are doing, because that is how they're going to change the world.